I would. Hi aspirants, welcome to another lecture. In this lecture number 17, which deals with current affairs, I will discuss the articles which have appeared in leading newspaper Indian Express and the Hindu in the first week of May 2021. The articles which have been covered in this lecture have been taken from Indian Express of 5th May, 6th May and 7th May and of Hindu on 6th May. In this lecture, I will show how the articles which have appeared can be mapped or linked to GS Mains paper 2 and 3 respectively. These articles are sometimes value additions to what we study in GS Mains, and alternatively, probable questions can be framed for respective GS Mains papers 2 and 3 as well. We have scanned the leading dailies and selected articles which are relevant from the civil services mains examination perspective. What we present in this lecture showcases our innovative ways to extract value from newspaper reading, especially articles. The first article is titled as Needed Free Jabs for All, which has appeared in Indian Express on 5th May. The context of this article. Here the author talks about India's current vaccination policy based on the liberalization approach and suggested that India's vaccination strategy should be free shots for all. What are the issues with vaccination policy? At a time when fair and speedy COVID-19 vaccination is of essence, the Indian government has done a great job of putting us at the mercy of vaccine manufacturers. It is bad enough that we depend as of now on just two suppliers, the Serum Institute of India and Bharat Biotech. What is baffling is that the government has now allowed them to set their own prices based on the affordability of different segments. This is the reason for vaccine shortage. This approach goes completely against the single payer model that ensures equitability in the market. What is the single payer approach? A single payer model in healthcare when the government tries to get the best possible deal from drug manufacturers by acting as the single buyer. In the single payer approach, the central government would order all the vaccines and then distribute them equitably between states and possibly some private healthcare providers. A radical change occurred on April 21 with the release of the central government's policy note on liberalized pricing and accelerated national COVID-19 vaccination strategy. What is liberalized pricing strategy? In the vaccine market, each manufacturer would change one transparently declared price to all buyers other than the central government, that is state and private hospitals. It also aims to incentivize vaccination production. What are the issues with this strategy? The above intention, however, was defeated the very same day by Serum Institute of India, which announced different prices for states and private hospitals with a much higher price, rupees 600 per dose for the latter. The danger of states being squeezed out was made worse by another aspect of the centre's new policy. It allows private hospitals to set their own prices for vaccination. Their prices will be monitored but not controlled. In practice, monitoring is likely to be symbolic, giving private hospitals a free hand. In short, the stage has been set for a thriving vaccine market where private hospitals charge hefty prices for vaccination and manufacturers make money by selling good portion of their supplies to private hospitals and at inflated prices. But production can equally be incentivized in the single payer system by paying an adequate price. It is just that the central government would have to foot the bill. So the real function of this pricing policy is to save the central government some money. Further, in a single payer framework, the government would probably be able to negotiate a much lower price than rupees 300 per dose, perhaps even lower than rupees 150 without undermining production incentives. Why central procurement is preferred to liberalization? The main reason is that it will lead to a more equitable distribution of vaccines in the population. Today, India is facing an acute shortage of COVID-19 vaccines. In the public sector, there is or was until now a reasonably equitable system where vaccination is provided free of charge to everyone in expanding priority categories such as health workers, the elderly, everyone above age 45 and so on and so forth. In the private market, on the other hand, scarce vaccines are distributed according to their ability to pay. The problem gets worse when private provision degenerates into an extortionate black market, as might happen in a situation of vaccine scarcity, much as with oxygen and COVID-19 medicines today. Liberalization does not really ease the shortage of vaccines. It just shifts some of the financial burden from the central government to private buyers. But the savings are at least partly illusory, since liberalization also enhances the bargaining power of manufacturers in public procurement negotiations. In any case, trimming the vaccination budget is hardly a priority when COVID-19 threatens to sink the economy. Conclusion: for a nation like India, as far as public interest is concerned, free vaccination at public health centers is a much better strategy. The need of the hour is to examine any proposed departure not only with the most scrupulous but with the most suspicious attention. What would be the probable question based on this editorial? Critically examine the single-payer approach vis-à-vis the liberalist pricing strategy in India's vaccination drive. Now we move on to another article which is titled as Reading Maratha Court Verdict, which has appeared on 6th May in Indian Express. Here, the author talks about a striking down of Maharashtra law granting reservation to the Maratha community by the 5-judge Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court. A 5-judge Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court struck down the Maharashtra law granting reservation to the Maratha community in admissions and government jobs in the state. The court had framed 6 questions of law on the issue. It unanimously agreed on 3 of these issues, while the verdict was split 3-2 on the other 3. The editorial insights of this article. First, the Supreme Court, while giving judgment, had framed 6 questions of law on the issue. It unanimously agreed on 3 issues, while on the 3, the verdict was split 3-2. Issue number 1, on revisiting the Indira Sawhney ruling. The key question before Supreme Court is whether the 1992 ruling in the Indira Sawhney case had to be revisited. What is Indira Sawhney or Mandal case of 1992? It is a 9-judge bench ruling that upheld the Mandal Commission report by laying down 2 important precedents. First is the criterion for a group to qualify for reservation is social and educational backwardness. Second, it reiterated the 50% limit to vertical quotas, reasoning that it was needed to ensure efficiency in the administration. The 50% limit is breached only in exceptional and extraordinary circumstances. What is the verdict on this issue? The state government, in support of the Maratha quota that exceeded the 50% limit, argued that the Indira Sawhney verdict must be revisited because an arbitrary ceiling is not envisaged by the Constitution. Second, in an unanimous ruling, the court declined to revisit the case by saying that although the ceiling was arbitrary in 1992, but now it is constitutionally recognized. Now, issues 2 and 3 on whether the Maratha law can be saved under the exception. On the question of whether the Maratha quota falls under the exceptional circumstances contemplated in Mandal case, first, the court looked into Maratha State Backward Commission report and also the state's argument, which says it has an 85% backward class population but only a 50% reservation limit. So the case falls under exceptional circumstances, but the court rejected the argument on grounds that Marathas are dominant forward class and are in the mainstream of national life. Issues 4, 5 and 6 on a state's power to identify socially and economically backward classes and 102nd Amendment. What is 102nd Amendment? The 102nd Constitutional Amendment gives constitutional status to the National Backward Classes Commission. It also empowers the President to notify backward classes. Several states have opposed the amendment on grounds that it essentially curtails the state's power. The Supreme Court has passed the following judgment on this issue with a 3-2 majority. The National Backward Classes Commission, set up under Article 338B, will recommend a new list of socially, economically and backward classes for states and a central list to the President regarding inclusion or exclusion of socially, economically backward classes, which would be final. In case of modification or exclusion from the list initially published, the power lies with the Parliament. Under Article 142, Supreme Court also issued a direction that says until a new list of socially and economically backward classes publishes, existing lists operating in all states and union territories for all purposes continue to operate. There is a similar article which has appeared in Hindu on 6 May 2021. The article is titled Against Excess. In Maratha case, Supreme Court holds fast to quota selling and requires special reasons to exceed it. The context. As earlier one, a 5-judge constitutional bench of the Supreme Court unanimously declared a Maharashtra law which provides reservation benefits to the Maratha community, taking the quota limit in the state in excess of 50%, which is unconstitutional. Second, the court said that there was no exceptional circumstance or extraordinary situation in the state which needed to break the 50% ceiling established by the Honorable Court in Indira Sahani case of 1992. What are the issues at hand? The Supreme Court has underscored the importance of adhering to the 50% limit on total reservation, as well as the need to justify any excess by showing the existence of exceptional circumstances. Second, court found the Maharashtrian government's claim without merit and at the same time said the community is adequately represented in public services. Third, the Maratha quota given by Maharashtra through a 2018 law did not survive judicial scrutiny by a constitution bench. Fourth, the 16% quota in admissions to educational institutions and jobs in public service, later brought down to 12% in admissions and 13% in jobs through a 2019 amendment, took the total reservation in the state beyond the 50% ceiling imposed by earlier verdicts. Fifth, the court found no exceptional situation in the state to justify the breach of the ceiling of 50%. Sixth, Supreme Court also set aside the ruling of the State High Court, which gave the reason that denial of reservation was pushing the Maratha community deeper into social and educational backwardness. What are the potential challenges? Supreme Court refusal to reconsider the 50% limit set down by a verdict in Indira Sahani case 1992 may threaten the continuance of different kinds of reservation in states. Second, interpretation of the 102nd Constitutional Amendment, by which a National Commission for Backward Classes was created, has provided right fears that the national body's role and power may impact the rights of the state. What are the conclusions? First, the court has ruled that there will be only a single list of socially and educationally backward classes with respect to each state and union territory notified by the President of India, and the states can only make recommendations for inclusion or exclusion with any subsequent change to be made by the President. The second one, the court has now ruled that Parliament's intent was to create a scheme to identify socially economically backward classes in the same manner as SCs and STs. The President alone, to the exclusion of all other authorities, is now empowered to identify SCBCs, that is socially and educationally backward classes. What would be the probable question on this based on this particular article? Why Maharashtra law granting reservation to the Maratha community has been struck down by the Supreme Court? Discuss. Now we move to another article, which is 5G trial. What is 5G trial and why it is important for Indian telcos? This article has appeared on 7th May in Indian Express. The editorial insights. The Department of Telecommunications allowed private telcos, Bharti Airtel, Reliance, Jio Infocom, and VI, formerly Vodafone Idea, and well as state-run telco Mahanagar Telephone Nigam Limited, that is MTNL, to start trials for 5G technology as well as application in various sectors. The trials will last for 6 months for now. Why are the trials for 5G technology important for telcos? 5G or fifth generation is the latest upgrade in the long-term evolution mobile broadband networks. 5G mainly works in 3 bands, namely low, mid and high frequency spectrum, all of which have their uses and limitations. The telecom market in India is left with only 3 private telcos, with the rest having surrendered to the low returns on investments over the years. Apart from the private telecommunication companies, the 2 state-run companies MTNL and BSNL have also survived but are making losses. In order to augment their average revenue per user, it is pertinent for telcos to start offering the new 5G technology as soon as possible. For this to crystallize, they will have to conduct trials in a variety of circumstances, including semi-urban and rural areas, which remains an untapped market for them. Apart from the telcos, it is also important that the government should be ready to roll out the new technology as soon as possible. A standing committee of Lok Sabha on information technology has already flayed the government for the following reasons. First, delays in approvals. Second, inadequate availability of the spectrum. Third, high spectrum prices. Fourth, poor development of use cases. Fifth, low status of fiberization. What will 5G trials in India entail for now? In the initial phase, these trials will be only for 6 months, including a 2-month period for procurement and setting up the equipment. In this 6 months, telcos will be required to test their setup in urban areas, semi-urban areas, as well as rural areas. During this period, the telcos will be provided with experimental spectrum in various bands, such as the mid-band of 3.2 GHz, 3.67 GHz, the millimeter wave band of 24.25 GHz to 28.5 GHz, and others. Where the low band spectrum has shown great promise in terms of coverage and speed of internet and data exchange. The maximum speed is limited to 100 megabits per second. This means that while telcos can use and install it for commercial cell phone users who may not have specific demands for very high speed internet, the low band spectrum may not be optimal for specialized needs of the industry. The mid band spectrum, on the other hand, offers higher speeds compared to the low band, but has limitations in terms of coverage area and penetration of signals. Telcos and companies which have taken the lead on 5G have indicated that this band may be used by industries and specialized factory units for building captive networks that can be molded into the needs of that particular industry. The high band spectrum offers the highest speed of all the 3 bands but is extremely limited coverage and signal penetration strength. Internet speeds in the high band spectrum of 5G has been tested to be as high as 20 Gbps, that is gigabits per second, while in most cases the maximum internet data speed in 4G has been recorded at 1 gigabits per second. What would be the probable question based on this article? Examine the challenges faced by India in introduction of 5G technologies, suggest solutions for faster implementation. This will be one of the most probable questions in 2021 on science and technology. Paper 3. Now we move to another article titled as Oxygen Famine, which has appeared in Indian Express on 8th May. The context is, here the author talks about how to ramp medical oxygen production distribution which can save lives. Editorial insights. India is currently engulfed with nearly 4 lakh cases and thousands of fatalities every day that pulverize the healthcare system to the dust. Now we discuss Italy 2020 and India 2021. In 2020, at its peak in Italy, COVID had claimed around 1 lakh lives because of COVID-19 illness and post-complications, whereas in India in 2021, the second wave has been claiming a very high number of lives similar to the Italy case, but the fundamental difference is in India, the reported deaths are due to a lack of basic healthcare facilities, mainly medical oxygen being the most glaring. What is happening in India? Is the oxygen crisis a new famine? Large cities like Delhi, Lucknow are gasping for air and deaths are reported in hospitals, homes and on the streets due to lack of oxygen supply. Second, the situation is in a very bad shape. Even with Supreme Court deliberations, nothing concrete is happening. Third, before the second wave, India's medical oxygen requirement was around 700 tons per day, but at present the requirement has increased to more than 5,000 tons per day. This has put immense pressure on the manufacturing units. This unprecedented situation can be compared to a famine. The current pandemic is evolving into an oxygen famine similar to famine, where the basic problem is lack of food. Akin to the famine, which can be overcome by increasing food supplies, the mortality of the current pandemic can be reduced by providing oxygen not only to the hospitals but also to patients even at home. What are the challenges India is facing in this regard? First, lack of production of medical oxygen on par with the requirement in the current state. Second, if manufacturing is able to produce required oxygen, but India faces huge challenges in the distribution network. Third, India lacks enough cryogenic tankers to supply oxygen. Fourth, the process of decasification and regasification at the current stage taking 6 days that delays oxygen supply. Finally, India needs more oxygen concentrators to accommodate more patients. Then what has to be done? First, rather than focusing on long-term strategies like setting up new hospitals, etc. in the current situation, the government needs to focus on immediate reliefs to avoid more deaths, such as home-based oxygen treatment protocols to be provided with oxygen supply. Second, the government along with private manufacturers can be able to produce 7,000 metric tons of medical oxygen per day. This option has to be explored. Third, government needs to arrange more and more cryogenic tankers that are vital in oxygen supply. Fourth, the oxygen cylinder supply to patients at home needs to be done on a war footing. Fifth, oxygen supply and distribution bottlenecks can be overcome by using existing government supply lines such as fair price shops. Finally, by using LPG cylinder distributors, government can identify patients and supply them oxygen cylinders even in remote areas as well. The conclusion. The need of the hour is to stop the deaths by government using a multi-pronged approach with science and rationality at the center of it all. By treating the current situation as oxygen famine, a significant proportion of the mortality rates can be reduced. At the same time, when the situation subsides, government needs to rebuild a vibrant healthcare ecosystem. What would be the probable question based on this article? Discuss how ramping up medical oxygen production distribution can save lives. That is all for now. Before I sign off, do tune in for my next videos. Please share this video with your friends and subscribe in large numbers. We really appreciate your encouragement and constructive suggestions. Thanks till we meet again.